Hello, everybody. I'm Vince White, and I'm an employment attorney. Normally on this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney, but not today. Today, we have a co-host, a writer, publicist, and so much more. Ariella Steinhorn. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me, Vince.
Please, my pleasure. It's
It's
been a wild ride lately. A bunch of people have been referencing the weekend show to me when they call me up, and it's very interesting. I didn't know the weekend show. I knew people watched it, but I didn't know it had such
such
reach.
reach. Amazing. No, it's the same for me. I'll hear from a person who found me and then knows you and has been watching you and then sees me on your channel. And then they're like, this is amazing that these two people are connected from these different, they didn't think that we were in the same world.
How often have you experienced the parasocial relationship at this point?
Oh man, I mean, it's mostly through my TikTok. I'm not a YouTube star like you, but I
Well,
have a
hardly.
TikTok. Hardly. You are. No, but I have a TikTok following. And yeah, people like to make assumptions, and people also like to internet sleuth, and they find out things, as I'm sure you found too.
Yeah.
But I guess this is what we're signing up for, you know? Like I can't, in a way.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. I always find it super interesting when people come up with backstories for me. 'Cause I'm like, that's what I give. That's the vibe.
Vibe.
Okay,
Okay.
that's cool. I like it. That's fun.
We're each 1,000 different people, according to the internet.
Wait, what was this?
We're each 1,000 different people, according to the internet.
That
Yeah,
is
it's like
a
all the theories are like they're everywhere, all over the place.
They very much are. All right, we've got news stories this week. What the first of which is the most interesting one, I think. Is that where you want to begin?
Yeah, let's begin here. So there's an interesting report in the Wall Street Journal. The title is Lawyers Market Big Me Too Verdicts, but Their Clients Struggle to Collect. And It gives a couple of examples of women who've pursued sexual harassment claims and Me Too cases, and they've been awarded by juries enormous amounts of money, millions of dollars, but they themselves haven't received any of that. So there was one example where one of the plaintiffs recovered 30 cents on the dollar. And the article says so far, most of the several million dollars that have been extracted from the defendant in this case have gone to pay the cuts owed to trial lawyers, collection lawyers, and a funding firm. So, yeah, it's pretty gross. And of course, there are. I don't. I don't think that these are all of the Me Too cases. Obviously, people can make money from them, but yeah, what are your thoughts on when that becomes the situation? Like, what recourse do people have? And why, like, how does the system need to change so it's not set up this way?
Absolutely. So let's pull out the funding company first, because that's a special circumstance. Um, Case loans are predatory. Always. Always forever, near and far. That will always be the case. Um, if you take a loan against your case with a case lending company, statistically speaking, you will receive $0. Your attorney will get paid, filing fees will get paid, expenses will get paid, the lending company will get paid. You will receive almost nothing. Frankly, when somebody borrows against their case, there's almost not a point in bringing it forward anymore because the client's already been paid. They've gotten whatever they're going to get. They're never going to get any more because I've seen 26% interest rates. Like, and it's just, I don't know if it's
I don't
legal
know
or
if it's
not. I tell people not to sign, but it's insane. Um, so like if you're lending against the case, you're never going to receive anything and you're eventually going to lose interest because no matter how much you want to fight the good fight, at some point you realize, hey, I owe 30 million on this case and I'm going to win 3. And I've had a lot of plaintiffs not even show up. Why would they show up to trial? They got what they're going to get. Too bad, attorneys. I guess you're 100 grand deep on my case, but I'm not getting anything anymore. So peace. it is what it is. That's a special case, and that's not on the attorneys, unless the attorneys are somehow like actively participants in that lending process. Like we beg people not to sign those agreements, and will often not even be willing to take cases forward if somebody's lent against them because they're going to lose interest. What's the point? But the rest of it, I think, has real merit.
Totally. And the debt collection piece of it is fascinating too, that even if like say you didn't even use a lender or no one loaned money for you for the case, but you need to have the actual ruling enforced.
Yeah.
Like to get the person to pay up.
So let's break that down a little bit because it's kind of hyper technical. So let's say you win a big verdict at trial. The first thing defense counsel is going to do is they're going to appeal, and they're going to come to you and say, "Hey, you won hypothetically whatever 30 million, right? Um, we think our appeal can probably knock it down to 3 million. But also, whether we win our appeal or not, we can keep you from getting money for 2 to 4 years through this appeal process. So do you want to take a deal?" And a lot of claimants will say yes. We'll go to the plaintiff and say, "Hey, we'll fund everything to defend this appeal for you. Please, please, please let us fight the appeal. Let us spend the extra 50, 60, 80, 100 grand on appeals attorneys. We'll back you. Like you don't have to do it." And they'll often say, "Thank you so much. I can't wait to do that. I need you to fund my lifestyle in the meantime." I can't do that. I'm not allowed to, even if I wanted to. And there's definitely situations where I would have. I'm not allowed. I can't fund your lifestyle. I can fund expenses on your case, but I can't fund your lifestyle. It's not ethically allowed for attorneys to do that. So then they say, "Oh, sorry, Vince. I appreciate all your help, but I'm going to go ahead and take that deal for 2 or 3 million, even though you want us the larger verdict." That's their prerogative. It's their life. I can't say to that person like, "Listen, you're making the wrong decision," because they're the one the bad thing happened to. And I've had listen, we had a client, a child had brain cancer, needed money, right? This article talks about 30 cents on the dollar. I've seen people take 2 cents on the dollar on resolved matters. There's also, listen, the economy is not good right now. The reality is back in 2022, our firm lost 7 figures to bankruptcies. Like we'd win cases, we'd settle cases, and then the company would just be like, "Oh boy, yeah, you messed this up pretty good. We're gonna go bankrupt. You're gonna get 3, 4, 5 cents on the dollar. Good luck. Sorry." It, it's a problem. It's a problem in the industry. Firms sometimes don't collect, like they don't bother. That's tough. I don't understand what service they're providing if they're not going to collect. I also don't really understand how they're making money, right? Like fundamentally, I have to help someone to make money, and that has to include putting the money in that person's pocket. It's got to be full service. I don't understand what a firm's like, "Yeah, we won the case for you. Enjoy. Enjoy your verdict. Let us know if you get paid. We'll take our piece." How does that work? That person's not, it wasn't their job to be a collections attorney. They're not an attorney. They don't have access to these resources. They don't know. The same way if you are go to a doctor, we don't know what we don't know. It's just not what we do for a living. So it is frustrating. I also think the media plays a part in this. People will see verdicts for, $30 million again. And it's just like, yeah, but that's not the amount the person gets. Like the jury didn't properly apply the jury instructions. That's not how the statute calculates damages. That's why this is going on appeal. That's why nobody thinks you're going to collect this. But on the way in, you get clients saying like, "No, no, no, I saw this case and the case is way less egregious than what happened to me, so I know I'll get 30 million and ChatGPT says I'll get 30 million." Easy say ChatGPT says it's a guarantee. And we're sitting there like, "Yeah, 800 grand max. Max you can hope to win under the statute, 800 grand for these specific claims in this jurisdiction. It's not in question, it's a hard cap." And they'll just say, "No, what can I do besides say, okay, well, I told you, so now we're gonna go out and try to win it for you because we'll do our best." But like again, the law says what it says. I don't know. I'm talking too much. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting because I think a lot of people, it's not like they're primarily in it for the money, but they also are because they've lost their livelihood. and they are needing to have a parachute to jump off the cliff of like speaking out against something that's powerful or someone that is powerful. So yeah, I mean, I think what's hard is that it just deters, that model then deters people from coming forward. You know, if unless they're in a financial position to do so and just want to do it to get justice, but most people are not in that position. So yeah, I don't know what the solution is. It just feels like it's very pay to play, and and almost that it's better. I mean, I know you would probably agree with this too, but that it's better to not go to trial and to just try to settle things, and get people money faster. I don't know, just because to prolong a 10-year ordeal and you get a couple cents, like that's insane.
So settlement is better for the clients. Trial is better for the firms. If the firm
If
can
the firm
afford a real trial team, trial is much better for the firms. There's no question. The biggest wins in my life, the trial wins. You know, not we had a trial team do them. I'm not going to take credit for these trial wins, but like in terms of the firm, you know, trial wins can be huge. And if you spend the time and the money, and you have a client who can wait it out and you know has the resources to wait it out, then it can be a huge win. The reality is, though, listen, you're talking 2.5 to 4 years at a minimum, and the bigger you win, the longer it can get held up in the back end sometimes. So, you know, it's hard. And I hear you loud and clear about that. It's not just about the money thing, but like to your point, there's this huge gap in people's lives. Like these jobs are how they put a roof over their head, feed their family, and in the same way, like road rage, we get so angry because it's so dangerous. There's so much adrenaline, right? It's the same thing. People are so angry because you're trying to take food out of their child's mouth. There's not a social safety net in this country, not really. And people can starve. People can be food insecure. So yeah, it's not about the money for people, but like there's this huge gap in their career just because somebody wanted to sleep with them or
or
didn't like the color of their skin or didn't like their gender identity. God forbid, you know, like any of these things. And so yeah, it's not about the money, but like there has to be a monetary component because how do we make up for that?
Yeah, and you can't count on the entity or person who has the money to do the right thing. I mean, the incentives are beyond just them potentially being greedy and selfish. The incentives are not there for them to give a shit about the person who's leaving or has that gap or challenged the power structure. So I totally agree, and I just think it's such a tricky one to think about how to resolve, because back to the what we were saying about lenders, like some people they just can't afford lawyers fees. They can't afford $600 an hour, and you know, you do a lot of your work on contingency, so it's a bit different. But I think that yeah, most people for other types of cases, like they may need these really predatory like litigation funders, which is I don't really know what the solution is because like not all lawyers can be pro bono. Or
Yeah, there's definitely firms who can't afford to fund the expenses on a case. And some of those firms have good attorneys in them who do good work. But I would say I don't think there's too many firms that I'm aware of who would hook a plaintiff up with a lending company. Um, because that plaintiff will lose interest in the case. That case will never settle because that client will receive $0 in the settlement. And the client might not show up to trial or even depositions because they already got what they're going to get. And they can log into the portal of the lender and see, like, oh, I owe $600,000 now on this $100,000 loan I took out just for me to live on for a year, you know? And it's just like, why would they bother showing up? You know, so most firms I think try to avoid that. If I saw a firm that was like heavily tied in with a case lending company, alarm bells everywhere for me personally.
yeah, for sure. Okay, shall we move on to the
Yeah,
next
really
story?
quick.
really quick.
I don't have
I don't
access
have
to
access.
the Wall Street Journal story. What did she land on? Did she have thoughts? I'm a huge
I'm
fan
a
of her
huge
work.
fan of her work.
So I think the Wall Street Journal is one of those publications, and I've talked to her a lot about this before, where they just report the facts. Like it's like this happened, then this happened. There's no real takeaway from her. It's very clear that she's exposing Allred. So like her bent is that the system, the Me Too system, is deeply flawed, and that Allred is not like what we were talking about the other week, where she claims she's made $1 billion. Like, how much of that actually went to, not that all of it went to her, but how much of it actually went to the women or the victims or survivors or whatever you want to call them. So Khadijah really is exposing Allred in all aspects. And I think she landed on, if I were to read through her reporting, the idea that some people are not quite sure it's worth it. And then there's the marketing that Allred and her daughter, Lisa Bloom, are doing to promote the cases. And that a lot of the clients feel that the cases are really hollow because they've made like literal sense. So I think that she had a couple of stories, a couple of examples in there, not all related to Allred, but just the system and the elements of payouts, like the technical underbelly of like what needs to be done to even get some of these cases into motion. And then, as you say, the layers of like the other side being able to appeal and then just simply not paying. And then can you collect on the real estate and seizing homes of these people because they just won't wire money or whatever is typically done. So a really interesting story. And I'm glad that she's doing it because I think it's been festering for a while. And people are always going to need a lawyer, always, but it's just so cost prohibitive for most people.
It is. It definitely is. I mean, the federal laws have to be rewritten. The way damages are calculated, it just is not reflective of the level of harm people are experiencing. And like, of course, I say that I'm a plaintiff's attorney. I want people to win more. Like, I get it. I get it. Guilty, guilty. But like losing, if you in a personal injury case, if you lost 3 years of work, like that would be valued so highly in that case. And a personal injury case is on average in New York State worth 10x what an employment law case is worth. But like that's weird because listen, it's really bad if you mess up your spine in a car accident. Is it as horrible for your life as a sexual assault in the workplace? It's just weird how society came down on that. And I think it was lobbying efforts from employers when the laws were written. I think a lot of laws are structured to hurt plaintiffs or minimize these claims. Um, that's where I would start, frankly. I also think like firms need to work on a contingency when they can, like it's just um it's tough. And there's definitely people come in here and they're like, you're gonna have to work on 25%. And I'm like, well, no, we're one of the most expensive in the nation. Like you don't come here looking for a deal. You come here looking specific because you want something we do. Um, but there are attorneys out there on 25%. You can get that. Like, and they'll front expenses for you. I've seen it. Not always, not every case. If you have a mediocre case, you probably can't get that. But if somebody thinks you have a $10 million case, you'll find representation, maybe at 25%, and they'll front the expenses. Like it's viable.
Yeah, totally. Um, and look, attorneys have to get paid. Like that's people in this line of work have to get paid. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be nicely compensated for you're a top tier firm, like you should be compensated for it. But it's like all these other players I think in the space that are popping up, um, and trying to get a piece of the pie, and then the actual person is left with very little. um, Not always, but yeah. So
There's so many people with their hands out on these cases. We had a doctor's office. Our client was like, "Oh, I got some medical records. I got to turn them over for the case." So we call up the doctor's office, like, "Hey, we need the medical records." Doctor's like, "Oh yeah, of course, we'll turn them over." And then they send us a bill for 6 grand
what?
for like 60 pages of medical records. And I'm like, "Yeah, that's not. This is the client's property. Like you can charge us printing costs. I wouldn't bat an eye at 400, 500, but like 6 grand, it's not even it's the client's property. Like you were paid to do this work. It is their property. You can make a reasonable sum, but if you're trying to scam us out of 6 grand here, I got to tell you, it's going to ask the client to walk in and take it because it's hers. And you're going to get $0. Like that's fine if you want to play that game, but like, and it's just, and clients don't see that because it's not their job to see that. But it's, getting on the phone with a doctor who's like, thinks, thinks he's going to get an easy six to go buy whatever he wants. It's just like, dude, come on, be decent. And also, you're treating this person's mental health through a horrible time, and then you're like, I'll get 6 grand. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you're supposed to be helping, It's just it's a weird industry, and everybody's trying to get a piece, and they think the attorneys have this unlimited funding. They ignore the fact that we're fronting expenses 10, 20, 30, 80, 100, 140 on, like, and we can lose that. If we don't win, we don't get that money back. It, whatever. I'm ranting. I'm sorry.
No, that's insane that it's like like the client's medical records, and that would be something that you or they would pay for. That's insane to me.
It's generally not an issue. Like, there's a lot of doctors like, yeah, yeah, send it over, and they $80 bill, printing cost. Fine, by all means, $300, $400, but it's fine. Just give me the records. It's fine. 6 grand? Oh, I see what you're doing. You know?